بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We continue this educational series revolved around the issue of al-ubudiyya, worship. And the last time that we met, we mentioned that al-ubudiyya or al-ibadah, it has 5 divisions. Today, insha'Allah ta'ala, we're going to look at a statement of a great scholar in Islam by the name of Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, who died in 751 after the Hijrah, about 1300 years ago. He has a book called Madarij al-Salikin, wherein he mentioned that al-ubudiyya, that worship revolves around 15 qawaid, 15 principles. It revolves around 15 principles. Worship revolves around 15 principles. And he said, whoever completes them, these principles, they complete the levels of al-ubudiyya, of worship. And he said, and to clarify وَبَيَّنَاهَا and al-ubudiyya, and to clarify that al-ubudiyya, he said, it is divided to 1, al-qalb, the heart, 2, al-lisan, the tongue, and 3, al-jawarih, the limbs. And he said, وَالْأَحْكَامَ الَّتِي لِلْعُبَيْدِيَّةِ خَمْسَةً, and the rulings that in which are for worship are 5. 1, wajib, meaning obligatory. 2, mustahab, meaning highly recommended. 3, haram, prohibited. 4, makruh, disliked. And 5, mubah, permissible. And he said for each one of these, you have, going back to those things that worship can be divided upon: 1, al-qalb, the heart; 2, al-lisan, the tongue; and 3, al-jawarih, the limbs. So we look at the statement in which he made, this great scholar, Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, or he's also known as Shamsuddin. He said that ubudiyya can be divided upon the heart, the tongue, and the limbs. And its rulings can be divided upon what is obligatory, what is highly recommended, what is prohibited, what is disliked, and what is permissible. So if you take these 5 rulings and you divide it by the 3 things that the worship can be divided upon, which is the heart, tongue, and limbs, this revolves around 15 principles. And he gives an example. He said, as it relates to the heart, you have such as al-ikhlas, sincerity, with tawakkul, reliance, meaning upon Allah; al-muhabba, love, yani for Allah; al-inaba, turning to Allah in repentance; wa khawf, having fear of Allah; rija, having hope in Allah. So this or these are the actions of the heart. As it relates to the heart also, such as niyyah, the intent. So the author is going or drawing our attention to worship being divided into the heart, the tongue, and the limbs. Either it is an act of worship that is obligatory, or an act of worship that is highly recommended, or something that is not permissible, or something that is disliked, or something that is recommended or permissible for us. Likewise, if we say the tongue, such as making supplication or dua or reciting the Quran, so this falls under the worship of the tongue. Likewise, we look at the worship of the limbs. We can say that it is such as making the salat or giving the zakat, the obligatory charity, or making the hajj. So that is worship revolved around the limbs. So all these things, the worship of the heart, worship of the limbs, worship of the tongue, revolve around these 5 ahkam: wajib, mustahab, haram, makruh, mubah. Obligatory, highly recommended, impermissible, disliked, and permissible. So these make 15 rulings. 15 rulings as relates to the heart, the tongue, and the limbs. Because Iman is based upon actions of the heart, actions of the tongue, and actions of the limb. As the author had mentioned in another book, where he mentions in poetry, Nuniyya, he says, Al-Iman qawli bil-lisan wa-i'tiqad bil-janan وعمل بالجوارح والأركان يزيد بالطاعة الرحمن وينقص بالطاعة شيطان. That Iman is testification of, or belief in the heart, testification of the tongue, and actions upon the limbs. It increases obedience to Ar-Rahman, meaning Yani Allah, and decreases with obedience to the shaitan. So with that being said, we close out this portion and we say once again that worship al-Ubaidiyya is revolved around 15 principles. The 5 rulings of worship, whether it's obligatory worship, whether it's worship that is recommended, worship that is impermissible, that is disliked, or worship that is permissible. Either it's going to be on the heart, the tongue, or the limbs. For that we say, Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم والنصر والتوفيق والثبات. Anything we said correct is from Allah alone. Anything we said from mistake, whether it be from the slips of the tongue, impediments of the tongue, mispronunciation, or pure ignorance, is from myself and the shaitan. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.